Okay, can everybody see the screen?
Yeah, great, Catherine. Yeah, we can see it.
Brilliant, fantastic. Okay, bore da, Catherine ydw I, a dwi'n reolwr ymgysylltu I Gronfa Dreftadaeth y Loteri Genedlaethol. Hello, my name is Catherine and I'm an engagement manager for the National Lottery Heritage Fund in Wales. Joining me today is Ellen. Do you want to say hi, Ellen?
Yeah, hi, Ellen ydw I. I'm Ellen, obviously, as Catherine mentioned. I'm also an engagement manager and I'm based in North Wales, and I've been with the fund for around 2 years and working with Catherine virtually for the last year or so. So look forward to trying to answer some of your questions at the end of this presentation.
So, fel y gwelwch, mae'r ddwy ohonom yn siaradwyr Cymraeg, a mae canran uchel o staff y Gronfa yng Nghymru yn siarad Cymraeg neu'n ddysgwyr ac yn barod I drafod ceisiadau neu ymholiadau I drafod ceisiadau Cymraeg a'r Saesneg. Gobeithio'n cynnal gweithdai trwy gyfnod y Gymraeg yn y dyfodol agos felly cadw'ch llyged allan am ddyddiadau. Os hoffech ofyn gwestiwn ar ddiwedd y sesiwn heddiw, gallwch wneud hynny yn y Gymraeg neu'r Saesneg, ond mwyn I ni allu cyflwyno'r wybodaeth I gyd o fewn yr amser neilltuwyd heddiw, mi bydd gweddill y cyflwyniad hwn yn Saesneg. The rest of this presentation will be in English, but I was just mentioning that we are available to do it in Welsh and we are happy to answer questions in Welsh should you want to do so later on. Okay, so let's get started. Thank you all for joining today. The main purpose of today's session is to give you an overview of our grant programmes, and hopefully between the two of us we'll be able to provide you with a bit more information on how to apply for funding. Both Ellen and I are previous grantees before joining the fund and therefore understand the amount of work that goes into developing an application. As with all funding programmes, it is a competitive process, so it's always worth taking time to understand as much as you can about the programme and ask any questions you might have. The engagement team is here to help and advise as much as we can. I will be covering quite a bit of information during this presentation, but don't worry about taking notes as we can circulate the slides, as Tom mentioned earlier, along with a script following this session. And we'll also have time at the end of the presentation to answer any questions you may have, so please submit your questions in the chat or raise your hand as Tom mentioned earlier. Thank you very much. Right, so what do we do and who do we support? The National Lottery Heritage Fund is the largest dedicated funder of heritage in the UK, and we believe that understanding, valuing and sharing our heritage brings people together, inspires pride in communities and boosts investment in local economies. We distribute national lottery grants of between 3,000 to 5 million, funding projects that sustain and transform Wales's heritage. What we mean by heritage. Heritage can be anything from the past and anything from the past that you value and want to pass on to the future generations. Heritage can mean different things to different people, and as a guide, it could include nature, landscapes, cultural traditions and memories, historic buildings, monuments and environments, collections and archives, and much more. And we fund organisations and community groups, not-for-profits, charities, trusts, local authorities, community councils, and in some circumstances, private owners of heritage when the public benefit outweighs the private gain. And we ask to see applicants to provide a copy of their governing document and later set of audited accounts. Oh gosh, I can't speak this morning. Right. As you may be aware, we've only just recently reopened the National Lottery Grants for Heritage programme, and it marks a return to our core business, but not a return to business as usual, and I'll go into this in more detail during the next few slides. However, the application process has not changed and 3 funding levels remain the same. If applying for between 3,000 and 10,000, you can proceed straight to application form on our website. We don't offer pre-app advice for this level of funding, but if you'd like to have a quick chat, you're welcome to contact the engagement team before submitting, and we'll share contact details at the end of this presentation. For projects between 10,000 and 250,000, we offer pre-application advice via the project inquiry form on the portal of our website. You can submit your project idea along with the estimated budget, and we'll then reply with feedback, either encouraging you to move forward with an application or in some circumstances discouraging the idea as presented. As it's a competitive process that can be time-consuming and costly for applicants, we believe it's important to provide honest and constructive feedback. And for this level of funding, you're required to add certain supporting documents with your application. A project plan detailing what, when and who, and you can find a project plan template on our website. If you plan on employing somebody as part of the project, a job description is required, and the same with any procurement of services, such as capital works or consultant fees. A brief for the work will also be required. We expect projects for this level of funding to be developed and ready to deliver. So if you intend working with new partners to reach new audiences, for instance, then letters of support should be added, providing detail on the support being offered. If working with schools, community groups on outreach activity, letters of support noting their eagerness to be part of the project should also be included. You can apply any time for funding between £3,000 and £250,000 and will receive a decision within 8 weeks. The process for applications for over £250,000 is a little different. At this grant level, all interested applicants must send us an expression of interest. If you are then invited to apply, your application will go through a two-stage process, development and delivery phase. There's guidance on our website that goes into more detail on this particular level of funding, and there are quarterly application deadlines and the dates are listed on the website. You must contribute or secure partnership funding of at least 5% of your project costs for grants of up to 1 million and at least 10% for grants of 1 million or more. Now, that's a very quick overview of the process and funding levels for the National Lottery Grants for Heritage, but as I've mentioned, there's more detail on the website under the funding tab. So National Lottery funding is public money, and therefore every project must consider the Welsh language in their project plan and delivery. Offering services in Welsh and in English is part of your approved purposes, and is also the perfect opportunity for you to ensure that your project reaches a wider range of people. You must think about how you will carry out your project bilingually before you submit your funding application, as you will need to include any associated costs with your project's budget. Every project in Wales must treat both languages equally. That will enable people to engage and access information and services in Welsh, and all materials, leaflets, websites, social media posts, etc. must be produced bilingually. And further information is available on the Manage Your Project Bilingually guidance on the website. You can also get in touch with Liam, the Welsh Language Manager, for further advice, information and support by emailing cymorthcymraeg@heritagefund.org.uk. Our strategic funding framework for 2019 to 2024 has not changed following the pandemic, as we are confident that the strategy and priorities are still relevant today. But within our broad approach to heritage overall, we have identified 3 priorities for heritage during this 5-year period, and that would be landscape and nature, community heritage and heritage at risk. We describe the difference we want to make with our funding through a set of 9 outcomes. Outcomes are changes, impacts or benefits that happen as a direct result of your project. This year, we are prioritising 6 of our outcomes as a response to the COVID-19 pandemic. They are: a wider range of people will be involved in heritage, and this is a mandatory outcome. Every project we fund must achieve our mandatory outcome as a minimum. The funded organisation will be more resilient. People will have greater well-being. People will have developed skills. The local area will be a better place to live, work or visit, and the local economy will be boosted. We also expect all projects to demonstrate that they are building long-term environmental sustainability into their plans, but more on this later on. The 3 remaining outcomes are: heritage will be in better condition, heritage will be identified and better explained, and people will have learned about heritage, leading to change in ideas and actions. But we encourage you to focus on achieving one or more of our priority outcomes at this time. For example, if a project only delivered on the better condition outcome and the mandatory outcome, It would be much less likely to be supported than a project that met the mandatory outcome plus another priority outcome. The number of outcomes you plan to achieve will depend on what you want to deliver and should be proportionate to the size of grant you are requesting or the specific focus of your project. There is no obligation to name more than the mandatory outcome, particularly for a smaller project, and we strongly encourage you not to claim more outcomes than you really think your project can deliver. We recognise that many of the outcomes are interrelated, and we would advise you to focus on the key needs of your project and outline these under the outcomes as that best capture this. So what do we mean by a wider range of people will be involved in heritage? Well, if your project is a success, then the range of people benefiting from the heritage will be more diverse than before your project started. So to achieve this outcome, you'll need to include audience development work and community consultation in your planning. You will need to collect and analyse information about the people who engage with your heritage and then those who don't. And you'll need to track how this changes over time. So we want to see every project taking steps to reach out to new people, to share heritage beyond their organisation and to embed inclusive practice as far as they can. So what we are looking for, are signs that your audience or volunteer profile has changed between the start and the end of the project. This might include a broader range of ages, ethnicities and social backgrounds, more disabled people, or groups who have never engaged with your heritage before. There's a section within the application form asking you to explain how you will work towards achieving our mandatory outcome. And it's important that you present a picture of where the organisation is at present and how the project will enable you to reach out to involve new audiences. Working in partnerships with other organisations that support specific groups within the community can be beneficial. For instance, housing associations who have community outreach programmes in areas of deprivation, charities such as MenCap, Disability Arts Cymru or Mind, and all organisations experienced in supporting youth work or supporting individuals with learning disabilities. By working in partnership to reach new audiences, you're sharing knowledge and skills, whilst also developing your audience, ensuring that a wider range of people will be involved in heritage. And we also encourage non-heritage organisations to develop partnerships with their local heritage museum or archive, so they can share best practice and offer support and guidance throughout the project delivery. We are not a capital-only funder, and we wish to support projects that offer opportunities for people to actively get involved and learn about heritage. Your project should include an element of engagement with the community, and activities and volunteering opportunities and targeted towards, activities and volunteering opportunities targeted towards underrepresented groups in heritage. More information about our website, more information available on our website under the inclusion guidance. To understand more about our priority outcomes and to see examples of how to work towards achieving some of them, please take a look at our website. Under the funding tab, you'll find good practice guidance for a range of subjects such as inclusion, local area and economy, creating activity plans, digital delivery, environmental sustainability, evaluation, and much more. There's also a section on outcomes, going into each one in detail, providing an example of projects, so it's well worth spending a bit of time reading here. Sitting alongside the priority outcomes, we expect applicants to meet our mandatory environmental sustainability requirement. We want all kinds of heritage projects, large and small, to limit any potential damage on the environment and make a positive impact on the environment, and particularly for nature. We further highlight and provide information on environmental sustainability within the applications guidance and on the outcomes webpage and within our good practice guidance content under the funding tab on the website. For landscape and nature capital projects, we will prioritise those that focus on one or all of the following themes: supporting nature's recovery, deliver nature-based solutions to climate change, and/or help people reconnect with nature. One of the questions in the application form asks, why does your project need to happen now? So tell us what needs and opportunity your project will address and what will happen if you do not receive the grant from us. Tell us what advice you have received in planning your project and from whom. Include feedback from any consultation you have done with your local community and those who will be involved in your project, and you should explain why you wish to undertake the project. What is the need for the project? Explain why you wish to deliver your project and what difference it will make. Consider if your project can work towards delivering our outcomes, and consider how you can involve people in all aspects of the project delivery, offering opportunities for people to understand more about heritage. COVID-19. In line with the COVID-19 context, you will need to factor in assumptions about social distancing as we've experienced during the last year. Things change quickly. Present contingency scenarios within your project plan, and when assessing your application, we will make a measured judgment on the potential risks your project might face due to the current pandemic situation. You should also carefully consider contingency costs within your application. To try and bring all this information together, I'm now going to talk through a case study. This is a project that was funded under the current SFF framework, but awarded prior to the pandemic, and delivery has been delayed because of the COVID pandemic, but they hope to pick up the pace in the next few months. Flintshire Local Authority was awarded £54,200 for a project that would involve people of all ages in recording, conserving and celebrating the diverse heritage of the historic town and enhance the sense of place. The activities offered include intergenerational oral history, documenting how Flint has changed in living memory, with school children recording older residents. Creating a community archive at Flint Library with volunteers, including a digital kiosk to showcase materials gathered. Developing Flint Coast Volunteer Group. Rebuilding coastal walls with volunteers, including Army veterans, giving walling training. Involving secondary pupils in volunteering, both practical and digital through Welsh Back, Duke of Edinburgh and their own community committees. Developing historical and wildlife displays and artworks with local schools for Jade Jones Pavilion and Coastal Path. Looking at immigration into Flint over time, with teenagers producing a series of comic strip stories for local newspapers. Producing panels and sculpted benches alongside the coast path. And varied events including a pop-up story shop to share stories more widely. The project will look towards delivering several outcomes, but to ensure that a wider range of people will be involved in heritage, they have identified new audiences they wish to engage with, veterans and vulnerable adults, and wish to offer opportunities for the Polish community to interact with a wider community, and have created opportunities for people to share their stories and learn about Flint through the medium of Polish. Their budget included costs to employ a heritage officer, various consultant fees to work with volunteers, volunteer costs to help remove barriers to participants, external evaluation costs and more. And they secured quite a bit of match funding before applying and have in-kind contribution as well. A few top tips when planning an application. Consider if heritage is the focus of your idea. This may sound obvious as we're the National Lottery Heritage Fund, but you need to ensure that the aim of your project is to celebrate, save, or get more people involved in heritage. Your ideas might take place in an old building, but your goal is mainly to install, if your project idea might take place in an old building, but if your goal is mainly to install new toilets so you can put on more art or community activities that aren't linked to the building's past or story in any way, then we are not the right funder for you. Think about who's involved in your heritage now, who isn't, and how you could encourage them to take part. Talk to people about what they are interested in and why your project is needed. There are lots of ways you can find out if people are interested in your project and gather ideas for exciting new activities. Consultation doesn't have to be death by questionnaire. Some groups use social media. They put their ideas on Facebook or Twitter and ask people to give them a like or put a suggestion box in a local community venue. You can also include letters or videos of support. Think about what happens after the project has ended. We value projects that become a lasting difference and leave a legacy, so think about what will happen after funding ends. If you have recruited volunteers or set up a group, could they go to do other things? If you have repaired a building, how will you maintain it and pay any costs to keep it open? Talk to or visit other projects. Get some expert advice. There are lots of groups that can help you. And if you want to record memories or collect life stories, you can get in touch with your local branch of the Oral History Society. If you want to repair a building or monument, talk to your council's conservation officer and also get in touch with us. I do apologise, I live next to a train line, so I hope you were able to hear that last part. But I'll repeat it anyway, just in case. So if you want to record memories or collect life stories, you can get in touch with your local branch of the Oral History Society. If you want to repair a building or monument, talk to your council's conservation officer and also get in touch with us. Explore other sources of cash or in-kind contribution support that could help, such as crowdfunding, business sponsorships, or other grant makers. Even if you are applying for a grant where we can pay 100%, it is good to see what other sources you can bring to it. It demonstrates how other people value your project and it will make it better value for money. You can also include in-kind contributions. And if you need to hire a room, but a community centre is letting you use it for free, this shows that they value your plans. Don't start your project before we've assessed it. If you've already started your project or advertised it starting on a set date, then we can't fund it or pay retrospectively. This doesn't mean you shouldn't do any preparations. If you are planning some research, it's good to visit your local archive to check out what material that you could use. But if you've already done all the work and just want us to publish a finished book or website, then it's not for us. And most of the opportunities to involve a wider range of people have already gone. Read our guidance. Each grant has guidance which takes you through question by question what you need to include and explains what we can and cannot fund. Do make sure you read this before you apply, and you can refer to it while you're filling in your application form. Other funding available. In partnership with Welsh Government, we are offering environmental grants to the third sector and local authorities in Wales. The Local Places for Nature and Community Woodlands programmes will enable local communities across Wales to get involved with restoring and enhancing nature. Both programmes are open for applications now, and guidance along with eligibility criteria is available on our website for anybody who might be interested in learning more. If you'd like to know more about any of the environmental grants mentioned, please contact natur@heritagefund.org.uk or have a look at our website. And to finish, here are our contact details as a team. Please do follow us on social media. We have Twitter and Facebook accounts, and we update these with news and events, etc. So worth following to keep up to date with what's new, etc. And that's it from me. So thanks for listening. Diolch am wrando. I think we can now move on to any question you might have, and I'm going to hand over to, Ellen and myself, and we can help answer your questions together. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and thank you very much for listening.
Diolch, Catherine. Thanks, Catherine. Yeah, it's quite a lot to take in, actually, isn't it? We've got our funding covers quite a bit covers a range of different aspects that you can apply for. And in terms of the money as well that you can apply for, from 3,000 to 5 million. So obviously there is a lot of information there to cover. But as Catherine mentioned, it's all on the website. So it's really worth just spending time on the funding pages of the website and just, getting to grips with how we work and what's available. So we've had a few questions on the chat, and I've tried to reply to some of them. So, you know, every project, it's difficult to give like a generic yes or no in terms of, do we think this is something that, you know, you could possibly apply for, without really having a further chat with you to understand a bit more. But I've shared our the link to the ticket source appointments, Catherine. So people can actually, if you wanted to have like a one-to-one chat with Catherine or myself, you can book appointments. So that I've shared that link in the chat, and we can share that as well, I think, maybe after the session, if that's okay. So if you want, you know, if you had a specific idea, you just wanted to just have a chat to begin with one of us, then you could book a time slot there. And also it's the same with, you know, with the project inquiry, as Catherine mentioned. If you do have, you know, a certain idea in mind, then you can go onto our portal on the website. You go onto the website, on the top hand right corner, there's a link for you to register as part on the website, and then there you'll gain access to the portal, and you can just submit. It's a short project inquiry form. If you've got an idea of budget, delivery partners, and then we then discuss as a team, or we come back to you then with our advice, so we can share, like, you know, links and good practice guidance and so forth. So I'm not sure, in terms of the questions in the chat, I think I've tried to kind of answer as much as I can today. You know, there's definitely something there on both questions that it's been submitted. So I think it's just a matter of us understanding more about what you want to deliver. In terms of your question, Julie, you know, with the Alzheimer's Society, we would be looking for you to deliver with a heritage organisation as a partner. So I'd you know, try and reach out and see who somebody, you know, who you could possibly work with in your area. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to ask, or you're welcome?
I'll just mention something about ticket source. I think we've only got the July tickets left, but we will be releasing more, so please don't be deterred if there aren't any left when you go and have a look yourselves. We just started doing it this month, so
yeah,
so it's something we're getting used to.
Yeah, so I'll try and update those this month, actually. Yeah, we'll do that, because over the summer holidays and so forth, you know, that people know where we're at and stuff as well. So yeah.
So has anyone else got any questions for either Ellen or Catherine? You can either raise your hand now, or you could just type in the chat.
You know, yeah, I think the main thing is just to say, you know, it's the mandatory outcome that we're really focused on in terms of smaller projects. So it's always about, you know, reaching out further than what you're doing at the moment, engaging new audiences. And, you know, if you wanted to have a chat, please do contact us, because, you know, we're here, me and Catherine, that's our work, you know, we're here to help. So just send us an email, or, you know, you can book one of those sessions. So yeah, if you just wanted to just have a general chat as well, we're here, you know, so.
Yeah, and as I mentioned in the presentation, you know, both of us are previous grantees as well. So we've been through the process before working for the fund. So we've applied ourselves, we've written the application ourselves. So we know what you guys are going through. So we can offer, you know, first-hand advice on that. I specifically focused on working with young people in heritage. And well, Ellen's again was another different project, but you worked with young people as well, though, didn't you? I think.
Yeah, schools, and it was our first outing to work with, you know, schools and volunteers, really, to be honest with you. So I came from the private sector, so we were opening up our music archive for education and so forth, you know, and we were opening up for it to be free of use for the third sector. And then so working with volunteers was a new thing for me. So working in partnership again with the National Library of Wales, we worked with Gwynedd Archive, we worked with the National Eisteddfod of Wales. So it was all about working with partners as well, so they could provide us with certain skills that we didn't have, and they were able to kind of, you know, put us on the right direction in terms of working with volunteers. What did we need to have in place and all this kind of thing. So yeah, I think.
Could I ask a question, Thomas, please?
Yeah.
First question is, what is the likely timescale from the beginning of the application and to the actual application being granted? That was the first question I wanted to ask. And by the way, thank you for the presentation. I found it very, very useful. The other thing was I wanted to ask for clarity really is if you were submitting an application on local authority land, does that have any impact on the actual application?
So, it's 8 weeks. So from submission, so from when you actually submit your application, so not anything in terms of project inquiry or anything, any pre-application advice, is from when you actually submit your finished application to receiving a decision, it's 8 weeks. So you need to factor that in when you're actually applying as well, you know, because we wouldn't support projects that have already started. So say, for instance, if you were coming in now for a project that you wanted to deliver in September, you know, your project plan wouldn't start maybe until October, you know, so you'd allow enough time for that decision to be made. And then in terms of local authority land, so would the organisation not be the local authority making the application?
No, it would be a volunteering group that make the application, but the application would refer to authority-owned land. Okay,
so you'd need to have a lease of some sort in place, yeah. And we can share the actual details with you actually of how long. It all depends on the level of funding, you know, you're coming in for in terms of how long that lease would need to be, and if it's capped, you know, what do you intend doing as well on that piece of land. So it'd be worth you just maybe sending us an email just with a bit more detail, and then we can provide you with exactly what, you know, what kind of lease you need.
I see. Thank you very much.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, our email, you know, it'll be shared with this, but there's a generic Wales email. So if you send it to that, then it'll come to myself, you know, so we can then reply and share links with you as well.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant.
Okay, so we've had a few questions in the chat. Arwin Owen has asked, would my application be stronger as part of a local history group or community group rather than just my own?
I'll take this one if you're okay with that, Ellen.
Yeah, go for it.
So basically it would be stronger as part of a local history group or community group because we don't tend to fund individuals, because as I mentioned in the presentation, we do ask for bank account details and constitution for organisations. So it would be best, and it would improve the heritage offer anyway if you did it via the heritage group or community group. And we're big on people coming in partnerships, so it would definitely be worth it. For example, when I worked for the Boys and Girls Clubs of Wales, I partnered with the Ogmore Valley Heritage Society and the local council and the community council in order to put heritage boards up. So that was part of my project, so that's what I would suggest.
Okay, we've got another one off Sophia Moore. When applying as a new project, is there criteria points on the form when applying for funding?
Okay, I'm not sure what you mean by that really, but I think Catherine's kind of covered some of it. So you need to be an organisation. Again, it all depends on the level of funding. You know, under 100,000, we would consider private owners of heritage. So, but not individuals or private companies that don't own a heritage asset. You know, so what we mean by heritage asset, we mean archive, a building, that kind of thing. You know, a monument or. But in terms of criteria points. There is, you know, on the website, it does list who can apply for our funding, you know, who's eligible. I don't know, is that an answer? I'm not sure. But yeah.
You want to drop in, Sophie, to have a chat if needs be. You can unmute yourself and if you wanted to, it's up to you.
Yeah, I think she's typing again.
Yeah, she's typing.
Apologies, I thought I was unmuted then when I was talking. I was answering you back. What I meant, I think I'm coming from a teaching point of view, is right. When you're applying, like to get an A, a B and a C in teaching, you have to have certain criteria points you hit when writing up your application. So I was kind of coming from that point of view.
I think that kind of comes into our outcomes really. So the mandatory outcomes, so a wider range of people will be involved in heritage. So if you're talking but if you're thinking about applying on behalf of a school, then, you know, we'd be looking for that project to be outward facing. So it wouldn't be necessarily something that you'd be doing just with the children of that school in mind. You know, it'd be something that you'd be working with the community to deliver.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So yeah, it kind of comes to our outcomes, and the only one that, you know, if you're coming in for under 10,000, or even, you know, even on the second round, the one that you really need to, in terms of the outcomes that you really need to have to deliver on, is the wider range of people. So as long as you had a really strong heritage focus, so that could be like, for instance, looking into your local community history, heritage, and that kind of thing with the school children, and a local history group, for instance, then, you know, that would be fine in terms of the heritage focus, but it's just really making sure that you're involving the community in your project.
Yeah, that's great.
Different elements of the community as well. So for instance, if you had like certain groups set up in your community, how can you try and involve all of them, or most of them, you know? So it's not about numbers really in terms of wider range, it's about the varied audiences, you know, and being as inclusive as possible as well. So accessibility is another thing that we really kind of are focused on. So so in terms of scoring high, it's always about the mandatory outcome.
Right, that's lovely. That's great. Thank you very much. You've answered it perfectly. Thank you.
Okay. We've got another question in the chat from Rob Jones. What period does the funding cover?
So this particular framework is up until 2022, because it's kind of changed because of the COVID-19 pandemic. But your project could be from a year to up to 2 or 3 years, depending on value for money. We do sometimes ask, like, for example, we had somebody come in and they wanted to do a project for 3 years, and that was a bit too much for the project idea. So that's when it's good to have a conversation with us about your project idea to see if we think that it actually needs the 3 years, or it could be done within 1.5 years to 2. So it's always good to have a look at that. So I suppose that is the period covered, isn't it, at the moment? But it will change in, is it April 2022? I think they're looking to change it.
Yeah, I think it all depends on what happens with COVID, isn't it, really? But it is a bit confusing. It is a lot to take in terms of priority outcomes and the mandatory outcome. But, you know, what we say is, if it's a smaller project, you just really focus on the mandatory outcome, and then you will inevitably maybe deliver some of the others as well, you know, by doing so. But if you're coming in your larger projects where you're looking at capital projects over 100,000, then you really need to think about those priority outcomes as well, you know, because it's part of trying to help, you know, the economy to recover post-COVID and the heritage sector in general. So I think they might change depending on COVID in April next year. They might actually just roll on.
Yeah, but nothing to worry about now. So that's the main thing. So if you wanted to fund this year, then it's not a problem.
Okay. And we've got John Killock with his hand up. So John, if you want to come with your question.
Yeah, probably I know the answer to this. I'm just checking. If the project comes from a community council or a school, it can come directly from those. It doesn't have to come through a voluntary organisation, does it?
No, it can come through the school. It can come through the community council. They just need to show who they're working with, and that it's not just that school or that community council benefiting from it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, has anyone else got any questions now, or? No. Okay, well, no worries. If you do have a question after the session and you forgot to ask, you can send it over to myself. My contact details are on the screen, and my colleague Callan's. Get in touch with us. We will then pass on your question to Catherine and Ellen, who will be able to get in touch with you with further support. So what's left for me now is to say thank you for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks again.